Hey guys, my name is Nursey. I'm a South African. I live and work in England. You know, I've improved the light. I've put on the ring light and I've put on the lamp. I don't know if you can see. I've really improved the light, but it's still dark. I think things will improve after winter. I guess the problem is the winter. It's still dark and I hate it when it's dark. So today I've been reflecting as to how I ended up in Europe in the first place. I tell these stories in order to educate, to inspire, and to motivate. And you can learn what you learn from my story if there's anything to learn. I'm a professional. I've been in many jobs, different jobs. I'm a motivational speaker in my own right. I'm a book writer. Yeah. Today I'd like to tell you how I ended up in Europe. I used to work. My first degree is in social work. So I used to work as a social worker. Then I got promoted. Before I worked as a social worker, I worked in different jobs, including working for universities. So I took a job as a social worker in my hometown because my parents were aging. So I came there as a social worker. But soon after that, I was promoted. I got promotion after promotion, which was a blessing up until I was a deputy director at the Department of Social Development, managing research and demography. That's my last post in South Africa before I resigned and left for Europe. The reason why I left, I was in a good paying job, which I'm struggling to get again now. I was having a good life, but when I fell in love, I wanted things to work before us. I wanted us to be close. I wanted to strengthen our relationship. You know, when you are in love, this was something that I've started to do. If you listen to my videos, I've started to do when I was quite mature. I was not a child. I was over 30 years of age. So I needed stability, some form of stability, because I have a job and I've done my job at home in terms of black tax. My siblings were starting to work, but now I needed to look after myself and focus on me, because nobody wants to age alone. So love is important. We all want stability. So I was longing for stability. So I had fallen in love. And because I had fallen in love, I needed to work on things very hard. You must remember that you work for your relationship. Even when things are tough, you don't give up, because you are here to be each other's strengths. When the other one is weak, you become strong. That is why other people say opposites attract, because sometimes we get attracted to people who are completely different characters from us. So I resigned in March 2018 and I headed to Scotland. Scotland was not far from Norway because he lived in Norway. So I knew that we would see each other often, as opposed to us only seeing each other on holidays, because what used to happen would be he would go to South Africa and I would go to Norway. So I was trying to change things and make them easier. And that time I thought it was me who was having a chance to do that. So I resigned and I went to Scotland to do my master's degree, and with an intention that as soon as I pass my master's degree, I will be working in the UK. At least I won't be far. And at that time, I haven't thought about Norway because I always thought that language would be a barrier, especially if I intended to work as a social worker in these countries. You have to be able to speak the language that people speak if you are a therapist for families, for children and for families, if you work with them. So I started in Scotland. That's when I started to face the challenges of living alone. He would come, but the challenges were that the master's degree was too tough for me. I spent a lot of time in the library. It was draining, you know, and if it's not exams, it's research. So it was quite a packed year that was draining for me. And that time you need people to understand you and the journey you are in. To add the salt in the wound was that 2019 my mother passed on. You must remember that I went to Scotland September. So few months, it was not a year after I left that my mother passed on. She didn't even wait for me, even though we were talking, wait for me to visit or whatever. And then I went home for a funeral, came back, and the grief started to eat me, the grief journey. It's my studies, they are tough. It's my grief journey. Grief changes you. But not everybody understand that, because people have a tendency of not understanding a situation when it doesn't involve them. They only understand when it involves them. So nobody understood how I felt with the grief journey. It was the most difficult part of my life. And at that time, I'm in the middle of my thesis or dissertation. I'm alone in another country because I went for the funeral, then immediately I came back to Scotland. So that was the toughest time of my life. That was the hardest time of my life, and the time where I needed an understanding of the journey that I was in, because that was the second parent that passed on, because my father passed on in 2016, 17, 18, 19. My mom passed on, and that was a wound after a wound. So then when I graduated, after I graduated, there were lots of issues and things that were happening in my life, and I needed to be in South Africa. And I could have stayed in South Africa the second time around if I would be in the job I used to be. So even though I got paid, because I went to South Africa, then this time I got a job where I was it was called specialization. I was specializing with gender-based violence, even though it was social work, but it was specializing social work in gender-based violence or domestic violence. So that was my focus. So as I was in that job, I realized that I no longer earn the money that I used to earn. I'm frustrated. I used to earn double the amount. So which made me now to try my way back to Europe. But initially I did that for love. Initially I did that putting my feelings aside, but doing it for someone else, for us to be happy, doing it for, it was the sacrifice that I was doing for our stability. It was the sacrifice that I was doing for us to bond and be more closer than before. So then when I went back to South Africa, after I have lost a mother and I got a job, I was not happy now with the salary. Then the second time around, I came to England. Remember, I was in Scotland first. I came to England, which is where I am now. But while I was in South Africa, I experienced another loss when my youngest brother took his own life. Then when I just arrived in England, my brother committed suicide again. I would love to be home, to be with my family in this journey, but now life has taught me that I can't always be there. You don't get everything, because I can be there, cry and grieve with them, but where will we get money? How are we going to survive? How are we going to feed ourselves? You need money to survive. So we relocate for different reasons, and other people like to ask me, why did you do it? You were in a good job. Why did you do it? You were earning good money. And then I agree with them with all of that. But sometimes we make sacrifices with the intention of strengthening our love relationships, because things were progressing. That time he had already written a letter asking for my hand in marriage to my mother. He had already paid part of the dowry. And so traditionally, in the customary law, how I understand it culturally, I was his wife. So the only thing that was left was to do the Western wedding, white wedding, which it was in my plan. But when I realized that there were complications in doing it, then I realized that there was no need for it, because it was getting a little bit complicated to plan it. That's where we differed also in terms of how we understand it culturally, because culturally he understood that 12 people were enough, or even 6 people were enough. Culturally, I understood that 500 people were enough. There are other things, other nitty-gritties that we understood differently, which made us to simple cancel it. Because all this time I wanted also for Christian principles to be obedient to God. I wanted to follow my values and do everything the right way. And then that is how I ended up living in Europe. That is where I ended up staying where I am today. But it started like when I relocated for love. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm just sharing my life for you to learn. If you enjoy it, as I will be sharing a lot, please like, share, and comment. God bless you. Take care. Love you. Bye.